Hey everyone, what's going on? Figured I'd make a hopefully short video kind of following up to what I talked about in this last video a few days ago. Because I'm going to be gone after work tomorrow and I won't have time to make anything this weekend and I don't want to lose my train of thought. But in this video, I talked about a bunch of different things and how they're interrelated, such as this money, water, drowning theme that seems to be related to 219, but it's also connected to Queen Elizabeth and Kamala Harris, and especially this date 10/20, which is Kamala Harris's birthday, and it's also the day in history that Herbert Hoover died, and he's the president during the stock market crash, and he actually died in 1964 even, which is the exact same day that Kamala Harris was born. And I also mentioned in this video how I was watching for the 262nd episode of Zach's show, the Gematria Effect, because I feel like there's going to be some symbolism that I'm supposed to pay attention to, and it will help me understand a narrative. And the last time I was watching one of his Gematria Effect episodes, it just so happened to be on the date 10/20. It was the 248th episode. Zach's full name equals 248. His radio shows on Truth Frequency Radio. Truth Frequency Radio equals 248. So this date, 10/20, was a pretty big date that I talked about within this video. And last night, I didn't get to listen to this whole Gematria Effect, but last night I listened to bits and pieces of it. And what was so interesting, I listened to probably the first, I don't know what it was, close to an hour of it. And maybe not even a full hour, but somebody had texted me about DJing for the Girl Scouts. And I'm an unorganized person. I got all my messages and stuff in my Facebook, and I got 2 different Facebooks, and then I check my phone. So I need to eventually just write them all down and stuff. But you know, I have a wedding like 2023 in August already, which is, I don't even, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you even put that on a calendar? You can put it in your phone, but if your phone breaks, you're screwed, you know. But moral of the story, so I just turned the volume down, and I wasn't really paying attention to the Gematria Effect because I was trying to make sure I didn't have to DJ on a certain date that she asked me for. It turned out that I do have a band gig on that day. I think it's March 5th. But you know, it took me probably 15 minutes or so to kind of go through my messages, make sure I didn't have anything. And my kid then was hungry or something. I went downstairs. I wasn't even listening to the Gematria Effect at all. And I came back upstairs, and since I was on Facebook, I just was scrolling through my homepage on my phone or whatever, and this video just stuck out to me. It was somebody shared this video about Snoop Dogg being hilarious on Family Feud. And I just clicked on it. It was the only video I clicked on. I watched the video, and one of the things was high on what, and he says the word horse. And I don't know. I didn't think it was that funny. I don't know. I don't think Steve Harvey's that funny either. But moral of the story was that this big joke that I watched this video was that Snoop Dogg said horse, and it was just hilarious, apparently. And right after I watched this, I went back to the Gematria Effect, and I turned up the volume or whatever, and on the screen is Snoop Dogg, right? Snoop Dogg's on the screen. And I was like, what in the world? You know, I just watched this video about Snoop Dogg. Now I go back to the Gematria Effect, and he's got Snoop Dogg on there. So I was like, I bet Snoop Dogg must be important to something I was supposed to see. And I look up Snoop Dogg, and of course, if it will ever load here, Snoop Dogg, his birthday is the same day as Kamala Harris's birthday. My internet's going super slow. Hopefully you can see this. October 20th, right? 10/20. And he's also 50 years old, and this big date, 219, that I'm talking about, that's the 50th day of the year. I talked about how my name equals 50 in Gematria, and I'm 39 years old, and that's 3 months and 9 days after my 39th birthday, and how I canceled a skiing trip, and I'm now going to Sioux Falls, Iowa. Sioux Falls equals 39, and ski equals 39, skiing equals 39, and I was going to go skiing in Breckenridge, that's on 39 degrees north. And when I was a kid, I used to go skiing at Keystone. Keystone, Colorado, and Keystone equals 39 even. So I knew there was this, this day is really important. 219, it seems to be very important, something I'm supposed to understand with it. And, I see Snoop Dogg's birthday, 1020, and then I look up his name in Gematria. His real name is Calvin Cordozar Brodus Jr. that equals 456. And if you go back and watch that video, I started it off talking about how the number 456 was important to Squid Game, and Squid Game is all about money and water, and Joe Biden just so happened to meet Pope Francis on the anniversary of the stock market crash this year, or last year, I guess, 2021, and it was exactly 4 years, 5 months, and 6 days after Donald Trump had met Pope Francis, and the same day that Donald Trump met Pope Francis, the Iowa governor, Kim Reynolds, had become the governor, and the same day that Joe Biden met Pope Francis, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds was in the news about people still getting unemployment in Iowa if they get fired for not having the vaccine. And once again, Iowa is important to the stock market crash because Herbert Hoover was the only president from Iowa, and he was the president during the stock market crash. And then there's a whole lot of other things, such as how Squid Game has the giant piggy bank. And, in 2019, there was this big relationship to the date August 10th, which was Herbert Hoover's birthday, and that's when Tisha B'Av began. But that was the Chinese pig year. And, Iowa also has a bunch of relationships to China because Kim Reynolds became the governor because the Iowa governor, Terry Branstad, had stepped down so he could become the ambassador to China. And then, of course, Iowa's the leading producer of pigs in America. Think about pigs. It was the Chinese year of the pig was 2019. That was the year that coronavirus came out. A whole lot more, South Park had that episode where Cartman turned into a pig when they tried to give him his vaccine, and that was just after South Park got banned in China. Then a few months later, we get coronavirus, and now we have the vaccine stuff. It's a lot to do with the year of the pig. And something I didn't point out in that video was that year of the pig also equals the 268. Just like year of the tiger and, just like Wall Street, right? Just pointing it out really quick. It's this big number I talked about in the previous video. But Squid Game is also important because Squid Game came out 456 days before Pope Francis's birthday in the year 2022, which is his 86th birthday, and Kamala Harris equals 86. And this big day that I'm following this year is the date August 6th, because that's the day that Tisha B'Av begins. Just like in 2019, how Tisha B'Av began on Herbert Hoover's birthday, right? And then you also had a whole bunch of the fair symbolism that was going on in 2019 as well. I'll just skip over all that. Don't want to get you lost, but 456 days after Pope Francis's birthday, that's when Squid Game came out, or before. And then 456 days after Joe Biden's birthday is also the date 219. So there's some interesting relationships. And what are the odds I keep saying Tupac, but Snoop Dogg's real name equals 456, and he was born on Kamala Harris's birthday, So I knew I was supposed to see that, and I just kind of looked up the Gematria. Snoop Dogg equals 222. Kamala Harris equals 222. We just had the Super Bowl that was important to Snoop Dogg too. Super Bowl equals 222. This date, 2/22/22, is on a Tuesday, and it's actually important to Neptune. Let me find it here really quick. I don't fully understand all the astrology things, but Neptune is very important to this date. We're going to have Pluto's return, which means it was in the same place in the sky as it was when, something was born. So it's returning to, it's not the exact spot, but it's starting to return to where it was when the United States began or whatever, like 248 years, right? And think about the 248th episode of the Gematria Effect that I was following previously, but where in the world did I put it? Let me see here. I know I just talked about it. Oh, it's right here. On 2/22/22, so in a few days here, Neptune will be at 22 degrees Pisces, opposite USA's natal Neptune at 22 degrees Virgo. So it's at its opposite of what it was when the United States was born, is what I get out of that. But it's at 22 degrees. Pisces, also a water sign, right? And, we're just going to be, it'll be in the time of Pisces as well, right? So, I don't know. It's pretty interesting. There's something to do with, Neptune and horses, and I'll get to this in a second, but that is why I wrote this in here, that Snoop Dogg equals 222, Kamala Harris 222, Super Bowl 222, and then think about 2/22/22. But the person who shared that video on Facebook has the same gematria as Snoop Dogg as well, and her name also equals 168 like Family Feud and 168 like Queen Elizabeth II, and Neptune's important because Neptune is the god of, he loves horses, right? In mythology, Neptune is the god of the sea, the god of earthquakes, and the god of horses. And Prince Philip, I actually thought Prince Philip would die last year because it was the year of the ox, the Chinese year of the ox. And if you look up the ox, its greatest enemy is the horse. And the word Philip actually means lover of horses. And then Prince Philip ends up dying. He actually died 201 days after my blog post talking all about that, but it had to do with Blade Runner and the toy horse and the date 6/10/21 on there, and that's Prince Philip's birthday. But I guess I'm just bringing this up because of Queen Elizabeth, right? And she was important in my last video, and think about Queen Elizabeth, Prince Philip, and even my friend named Phil got into a ATV accident, and he's paralyzed, or I think he's not as paralyzed as he was, but he's still pretty paralyzed. And he loves horses. Like literally, that's like his favorite pastime, is he loves riding horses and whatever else. And that same year, he gets paralyzed from an ATV accident, and like a motorized horse kind of thing. It's got, and it was all by the numbers, all synced up and everything else. But I'll move on here. But the lady who shared the Snoop Dogg video that I watched on Facebook, her name equals the same as Snoop Dogg, and her name equals the same as Family Feud, and her name equals the same as Queen Elizabeth II. So, just interesting. I was also looking up Snoop Dogg. I'm going to skip over this, but I was just looking up Snoop Dogg, and I was like, look at all of his relatives. Like, there are all a bunch of these famous people, like Brandy always makes me think of Kobe Bryant, but Brandy and Ray J, and then Nate Dogg and Sasha Banks, and just kind of seems to prove the point, like born and bred to be. Like all these famous people are all related. It just seems weird, But Sasha Banks really stuck out to me because Snoop Dogg's linked to the Super Bowl, and then the same day of the Super Bowl, we had that new show Bel Air that came out, like the spinoff of Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and the Fresh Prince of Bel Air equals 222. That's something I've talked about with Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles for a number of years, how that TV show was linked to them, and it equals 222, but there's so much more with WrestleMania. I don't want to get into it, but last year at WrestleMania, Sasha Banks actually was the headliner wrestler against Bianca Belair, and I talked about how it was all linked up to Ronda Rousey and earthquakes, and think about Belair, and I talked about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and why they wrestled, because the Fresh Prince, he moves in with the Banks family, right? Uncle Philip Banks and Carlton Banks, and think about Banks in relation to money and what I'm talking about with 219. But I don't know. I'm just going to skip over it, but Uncle Phil, though, he was related to the horse theme too, right? Uncle Phil, James Avery, We'll look him up really quick, but James Avery, he just so happened to die in 2013. And in 2013, I was talking about how there was a Kill Phil theme that was going on. And we had the death of Paul Walker. And then a few days later, we had that story about, Phil from Duck Dynasty hating gay people. Then this Uncle Phil died. And recall, Philip means lover of horses. Then during the Super Bowl, they had the Broncos playing the Seahawks. Both teams that remind us of Neptune, right? The sea and the horse. But during that pregame show, Philip Phillips, some singer, was singing a song called Gone, Gone, Gone. And then they announced that Philip Seymour Hoffman had died. And once again, Philip means lover of horses. Think about the Broncos play of the Seahawks. It was all linked up to Neptune. They even had that Maserati commercial with the trident. And they said, now we strike. And of course, Neptune has the trident, right? And Pluto, which is important as well, Pluto has the Bident. The weapon is called the Bident. It looks a lot like Joe Biden, right? So it's interesting, but I also talked about how Ukraine has their coat of arms on their flag is the trident. And there was a whole bunch of stuff with Ukraine. And Ukraine also equals 219 in Francis Bacon Gematria. So, and also think about Helena Hutchins, who got killed by Alec Baldwin, supposedly, right? And she was from Ukraine. And Alec Baldwin, the thing he was famous for a lot before that shooting was calling his young daughter a ruthless pig or something like that, right? And she was born in the Chinese pig year, and that he called her a pig during the Chinese pig year, so absolutely all linked up here. That pig symbolism is very important, and think about that pig relationship to Squid Game and money. There's something important here. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to kind of skip over that, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. And I later, when I was listening to the Gematria Effect, later, some guy from India called in. And, it's kind of rare. Not a whole lot of people from other countries call into the Gematria Effect, but a guy from India called in. And he talked for a really long time, but I need to go back and re-listen to it. But one of the first thing that he really talked about was the death of the actors Irfan Khan. And I'm pretty sure he was the actor in the movie Life of Pi that was all about the tiger, right? And he died in 2020. And it was right after all the tiger symbolism. You had Tiger King that came out, and the tiger that got coronavirus, and Al Kaline, the Detroit Tigers player, died. And Stay the Fuck at Home with Samuel L. Jackson. He was reading Stay the Fuck at Home, and it had the tiger on it, right? But it was also, the word fuck was censored by the moon, and the moon is important to the number 201, just like how the tiger equals 201. And what else was there? Pink, the singer, she was on Ellen, and the clip that they showed was like her son Jameson Moonhart wearing a jacket with a tiger on it, and that was just before the pink moon, and a whole bunch of other symbolism. But Irfan Khan died, right? And he was in Life of Pi, linked to that tiger symbolism. We're currently in the year of the tiger. But I can't remember who died first, Rishi Kapoor or Irfan Khan, but they died like one day apart. It was on April 29th and April 30th. And when this guy called in, I was like, man, I know what I'm supposed to see with this episode now. It is something to do with horses and Neptune. And the reason I say that is because I swear I have to be the only person in this community who talked about the same thing that this guy talked about. And if you go back, you got to watch some of these other videos. I mean, and this is a real problem with the way that I'm decoding. It is very difficult because I'm trying to explain things that happened years ago that are related to this, and there are these ongoing narratives that are all interrelated. But there's a big Mandela effect theme. If you come and watch just this video right here, I think you'll understand what I am saying in this video. And there's also links in the description, but in 2019, I had a bunch of synchronicity with the Mandela effect, and I was talking about the Kentucky Derby and how Omaha Beach was the main horse. It was the horse that was favored to win the Kentucky Derby, but then it got scratched. But its owner was named Richard Mandela, right? And then somebody commented on one of my videos about the Mandela effect, and then I realized this thing with Alex Trebek that was synced up to that same movie. And that's why we got the guy from the Monkees that died earlier this year, because he's the guy who wrote that movie called The Adventures of Lyle Swan. But so go back and go watch this video. I think you'll understand what I'm saying. But the point I'm making is that the Mandela effect was linked up to Omaha Beach, the horse. And there's a whole lot more with this, but that's why in this old post, I connected it. I noticed that these two actors were actually in the film called D-Day together. And D-Day, of course, is important because D-Day is also on, is Omaha Beach, right? D-Day was on Omaha Beach, right? Normandy, France. It was also, believe it or not, the Normandy attacks, or D-Day, was also called Operation Neptune, of all things, right? Operation Neptune. Also, in light of August 6th being Tisha B'Av and Tisha B'Av's connection to 9/11, when they supposedly killed Osama bin Laden, it was called Operation Neptune Spear, right? So there's definitely a Neptune relationship. In my whole life, I've talked about how I've had this connection to Neptune, right? Neptune's even equals 95, and Sirius equals 95, and a whole lot more. I was born in the dog year, and think about the dog star, and my name equals 95, my full name equals 95. Have all these connections to Martin Luther with 95, and so Neptune 95, Sirius 95. There's a whole lot of, think about how the Queen is 95 years old right now. The Braves were the team that I used to love as a kid growing up. They just won all by the number 95, and it was linked up to Queen Elizabeth. And Jock Peterson, who wore the pearls, just like how Queen Elizabeth wears the pearls, just like how Kamala Harris wore the pearls on Inauguration Day in that purple dress, she looked like Lisa Simpson. And Lisa Simpson, of course, was the president after Donald Trump, the woman president. But, it's just moral of the story. This Indian guy calls it, and he talks about this, and I'm going, I got to be the only person in the world who documented about the same thing. And it all had to do with horses. And then you go back and you think about this synchronicity I had with Snoop Dogg, and he was on Family Feud, and the joke was that he said the word horse, right? Horse. And then the Indian guy calls in, and it's synced up to D-Day, which I connected to the Mandela effect. And one of them guys, too, he died on the, Hitler's birthday. And it's hard to explain, but that Omaha Beach stuff was in 2019. And I had them synchronicities on the dates 4/29 and also the date 4/30. And then these two Indian guys, they die on 4/29 and 4/30. And the biggest narrative that I was following that year was with the Big Bang Theory and how it linked up to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It seemed ridiculous. Then the very final episode ever of the Big Bang Theory had Sarah Michelle Gellar was on it, who was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and she was the running joke on the whole episode, right? And she dated the Indian guy, Raj, right? And that Kentucky Derby that year, too, 2019, it was linked up to the movie Escape from Guantanamo Bay with Harold and Kumar. And the guy who plays the Indian guy in that movie, he also started being on the Big Bang Theory. He was on an episode of the Big Bang Theory on the same day as the Kentucky Derby that year. So I knew that there was some relationship to these Indian actors dying, and Raj, and then the guy from Escape from Guantanamo Bay, because remember how the horse that ended up winning was the horse that got disqualified, I think, was named Maximum Security. And then, we got that plane that skidded off the runway coming back from Guantanamo Bay, which is a maximum security place. And then I watched Harold and Kumar Escape from Guantanamo Bay, and it was connected to exactly the same narrative that I was talking about with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff. Synced up to Slipknot, and then the one member of Slipknot's daughters died a week later after I watched that movie and talked about how it's synced up to Slipknot. So, moral of the story, I think what I'm supposed to pay attention to is this Neptune and a horse theme. And I wish I knew more about, the mythology and astrology in regards to, what Neptune represents exactly. I just know very minimal things about it, but I then clicked on the Lakers game on ESPN to I thought it would play, just show up on ESPN, but apparently you have to have your provider, and I don't have DirecTV or anything anymore. But I just thought it was funny that it froze on this picture with number 45 and 6, 4, 5, 6. And I also later blogged on this post. Earlier at work, I was thinking about why my canceled ski trip might be important. And it, if you watch my video, or this video here, I end up talking about that ski trip that I got canceled on 2/19 and how I'm going to go to Sioux Falls now. And I talked about how it was linked up to uh, Keystone because it was so random that we ended up going to Sioux Falls because my girlfriend just suggested it. I said sure, whatever. And then like a few days later, I finally looked it up and I was like, what in the world? Sioux Falls equals 39 as well? And it was actually in the video that I made when I finally looked it up. I didn't even think to look it up right away, but like I said, 2/19 is 3 months and 9 days after my 39th birthday. I was originally going to go skiing. Ski equals 39. The word skiing equals 39. And we were going to go to Breckenridge on 39 degrees north. And I pointed out in multiple posts leading up to this trip that I thought I was going to go on how I used to go skiing in Keystone, Colorado, and Keystone equals 39. And anyway, the only time I can remember ever blogging about Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or Sioux Falls in general, is back in 2015 when there was this mainstream story about a principal getting shot at Harrisburg High School. And what was so interesting was that that principal just so happened to be my aunt's brother. And I'm not related to him. It's like my dad's brother married her, so like it's her brother. And I really don't know the guy, but for years I've still wondered if he's like if it was a real story, if it was synchronicity or what. I just don't want to ask and cause problems, within the family and so on. And but because they're obviously going to tell me it was real, no matter what, because even if it wasn't, what I'm saying? Like it's just going to cause problems. But that shooting was like on 273rd Street on the 273rd day of the year at Sioux Falls, South Dakota equals 273. And I pointed out a whole bunch of stuff, but if you go back and watch my original video where I talked about it back in 2015, I connected it to Keystone, the Keystone service in Pennsylvania, and how it was linked up to the Amtrak derailment in Philadelphia in 2015 that was linked to Pope Francis. And, it's just interesting because that high school was called Harrisburg, and this Keystone service, it ends in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Think about Kamala Harris. Think about how Joe Biden is from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is also the Keystone State. And I also talked about Mount Rushmore in the second part of this video and how there's a town called Keystone, South Dakota that's just outside of Mount Rushmore. It's like a tourist town. I've never been there, but I talked about Keystone, South Dakota as well. And what are the odds that I cancel this ski trip and I used to go skiing in Keystone all the time, and then I go to Sioux Falls and it reminds me of this old video where I talked about Keystone like crazy, right? And then Keystone equals 39. And so anyway, I was thinking about all of this at work, and I look over and the girl Caitlin that I work with, she's wearing a shirt, and I noticed the word Keystone on the back of it, and I was like, hold on, let me take a picture of your shirt, because I talk about this knowledge at work a lot of times, but I try not to go overboard because I know people don't get it. But I was like, you guys got to see this. Like I was just blogging about Keystone like crazy and how I canceled my ski trip and now I'm going to Sioux Falls, and my old video about Sioux Falls involved Keystone. And I'm thinking about this right now, and I look over and I see your shirt that says Keystone on it. And she doesn't even know what it's from. She got the shirt from somebody else and was just wearing it. And I was like, well, it's got to be something to do with Mount Rushmore, obviously, right? And then I was like, oh, it's Keystone, South Dakota, right? So she's like, what are the odds that she'd wear this shirt the very next day? I don't ever remember her wearing this shirt, you know? Maybe she has, but it's just like, what are the odds she's wearing that shirt? So I took the picture, and I noticed, her name equals 219, and I had synchronicity with her back in September with Iggy Azalea and the song Fancy and so on, and it was all linked up by the numbers, like Fancy equals 86, and I think it was 86 days after Iggy Azalea's birthday, and I pointed out how she was born on the same day as my sister, and my sister is the one who I was supposed to go on the ski trip with. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are the odds this girl's wearing this shirt after I'm blogging about this? And they also both have the same birthday as John Kerry, who I think is really important to this year. But anyway, I re-looked up Keystone, South Dakota, and I probably talked about it in an old video. I need to go back and really listen to what I said, but it says it took its name from the Masonic symbol, the keystone, right? And the keystone's like what holds everything together, right? And right? So I'm like, the keystone, right? And maybe that's what 219 means. Maybe 219 is like the piece to understand all of these other narratives, right? All of these things that are going on. It's just it's this date that is related to like all of these things. It's the centerpiece of what I'm supposed to get, But who knows? I was just thinking about that. And I wondered this even more so because the shooter that supposedly shot my aunt's brother, his name was Mason Buell. And I know in that old video, I said this, I connected it to Freemasons because his name equaled 33. And I was like, look at his name, Mason Buell. It sounds a lot like Mason and symbol together. Mason Buell, right? And then I see Keystone, South Dakota is named after the Keystone and Freemasonry. I'm like, and maybe there's something I'm supposed to learn with this, And also at work that day, this one guy who comes in all the time, I see him all the time. Probably at least once a day, he comes in, he gets a breakfast pizza like 5 times a week, I bet you. And he always calls me chief, and he talks to me a little bit, and whatever. He's an older guy, but that same day, he came in, he's wearing a jacket with the Freemason square and compass on it. And I didn't say anything to him, but I looked at it, and I was just like, this guy's a Freemason? Like, what are the odds, Like, I mean, I don't even care. Big deal, but it's just like, and maybe he's just wearing that coat. Maybe he got it at the Goodwill. I don't know. But it's just crazy that he's wearing a coat with the Freemason square and compass, like in a tiny corner on it. And, whatever. Talk to him again. No big deal. But I was like, man, there's got to be something with this. And I still don't know what it means. I don't get it. But the people who created Mount Rushmore are Gutzon and Lincoln Borglum. And Gutzon went to Jesuit Creighton University. And they're also both Freemasons. So I was like, interesting, And I just started thinking about South Dakota and North Dakota and the Keystone Pipeline. Maybe Keystone beer. I was like, I don't know. There's something to do with Keystone, right? And I'll come back to this, but just keep in mind this. Well, actually, I'll just say it really quick and then I'll come back. But today I went to work, and today is our truck day, and I'm always the one who puts all the big stuff away and whatever because I'm the only guy that works there in the afternoon or the morning and so on. And once it's done, you got to put all the boxes in the cardboard bin outside. And I went out our side door, and nobody's actually supposed to park here. There's a bunch of no parking signs, but I walked outside, literally the door is like right here, and I open the door, and I see Cougar by Keystone. And I don't know if you can see that. We'll see if it'll pull up or no. Maybe I can zoom in. Well, it says Cougar by Keystone right here. And it's like I walk out, and I go, what are the odds, So I went and I walked over here, and I put the cardboard in the bin, and then I came back, and I saw people sitting in the truck, so I didn't want to look that obvious, and I was taking the picture, so I started a video, and I just kind of like pretended I was like looking, and I videoed it and then I took a screenshot of it. But I went back inside and I told the girls at work, I was like, you know how yesterday I was telling you how I keep seeing the word keystone and there's something important to keystone? And Caitlin was wearing a shirt with the word keystone on it. I was like, go look outside. I was like, go look. And they opened up the door. They're like, what in the world? That's crazy. And I'm like, yes, I know. I deal with this every single day. It's synchronicity. But, you know, they don't really care that much. They just, whatever. They find it crazy and then they just go on with their day. But me, I find it crazy and I'm like, there's got to be some meaning to this, right? And there always is a meaning to it. But it's just crazy. I had synchronicity again today with the word keystone. And I will come back to that. But in my blog post last night, after with the Snoop Dogg stuff, I wrote in here somewhere, I'm going to try to watch that movie St. Vincent, which I still haven't watched. But when I was laying in bed, I don't know why I didn't end up watching the movie. I just started looking more into stuff because, I don't know, you get motivated again once you lay back down or something. But anyway, I went to Facebook and I saw that this girl shared a news article about the nursing home in the town that I live in. And keep in mind, the town I live in is like 1,000 people. But my girlfriend used to work at this nursing home. And this girl on Facebook shared an article from the Omaha News that said that the town I live in's nursing home leads the state in COVID-19 deaths. And, you know, they have only 48 residents and a crap load of them have died over the years, right? So they're in a bunch of trouble and whatever else. And anyway, the whole story really involves this guy named Jack Hahn who died up there because they didn't send him to the hospital or something when he needed to go to the hospital, and his family must be the reason for this article, you know, and they must be suing the nursing home or something. But and I knew this guy too. He's a pretty cool guy. I used to see him at the Gold Slipper a lot, and he'd drink wine and kind of hit on some old ladies and whatever. He's pretty old. And there's also a story how he got in a fight with my grandpa's brother at one of the old people lunch things. I can't remember, but there was a story how they got a fist fight. They're 80 some years old and they got in a fist fight. I thought that was funny, but you know, he was a good guy. He owned the oil company in town, or he owned an oil company, and he used to own the old gas station when I was really, really little. But so he had he had a lot of money and so on. But moral of the story, I figured, I'm gonna look up his obituary. And would you believe that he died on Kamala Harris's birthday, right? October 20th? It's what are the odds he dies on October 20th? And I was like, the girl who shared it, I was like, I wonder what her birthday is. So I look up the girl who shares its birthday. October 29th. You know what that is? The anniversary of the stock market crash. Right? It's what are the odds? This girl, her birthday's the anniversary of the stock market crash. She's the one who shared the article. I read the article. The article's about Jack Hahn. Pretty much how he died and whatever. And his birthday's the same as Kamala Harris's birthday. Snoop Dogg's birthday. You just can't even make it up. Or not his birthday, the day that he died, but his birthday is actually the same as Adrian Peterson's birthday, which I documented about in that previous post too. 21/3. And he owned the oil company too, right? So that makes me think of the Keystone Pipeline again. Keystone, so it's just craziness. You just lay in bed and I'm like, what are the odds? That's the next thing that I look up. And then I tried watching St. Vincent and I fell asleep. But let's go back to this Keystone synchronicity. So after this happened, Cougar by Keystone, I mistook it for just Cougar Keystone. I didn't see the word by. And I didn't have time. I was in the kitchen and stocking stuff and whatever. I'd got done, and there's an older lady that works there that she'd get mad if I even got on my phone. So when she's there, I try not to get on my phone, or if I do, it's very minimal. And at 12:30ish, 12 to 1 o'clock, I usually go up front and run the cash register. So I was like, if no one's in there, today I'm going to look at my phone and kind of look up the synchronicity. But I mistook it for Cougar Keystone, and I saw Cougar Keystone equal 356, and I was like, that's interesting, because my coworker with the Keystone shirt, her name equals 356. And then I just started thinking about all the 356 stuff, right? And I went to my blog, because I knew I talked about 356 with SpongeBob and some other things. And I searched 356. And then I had like a customer come in, and the customer bought $56.44 worth of stuff and gave me $60. And their change was 356, right? So right after I searched number 356 on my blog, the next customer, their change was $3.56. And then the next person, their total was $2.68. And if you go to my post about 356 on SpongeBob, I talked about how these two numbers had a relationship. I talked about how, I don't even remember, there was a Nirvana symbolism, and I talked about how it was synced up to blackouts and money and whatever. And we had the kid from Nevermind, the Nevermind album, where he's naked and he's floating in the water trying to get the dollar bill, right? Think about that. Money and water yet again. And think about how he tried filing a lawsuit against Nirvana and so on earlier this year. And, in relation to Queen Elizabeth, too, I also talked about how Courtney Love was really important to this year. And it was synced up to Kurt Cobain and the death of Larry Flynt. Hold on one second. Larry Flynt, he did die this year. Yeah. Or he died, 2021. I say this year, but 2021. But I talked about how he was synced up to Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain and the number 54. I have a whole video on that I'll leave in the description, but it's just interesting thinking about that now. And then we had the Nevermind Baby. So I knew there was something important to Nirvana. Then we got the Nevermind Baby trying to sue Nirvana. And of course he's the baby floating in water trying to get the money, right? Money, water, drowning, right? But Nirvana equals 219 in Gematria. But when I blogged about SpongeBob equaling 356 and how Super Bowl 53 equaled 356 with the whole Travis Scott, and I was following that narrative with Pluto and SpongeBob and Pluto TV, and how SpongeBob is also linked up to Neptune, right? Think about Neptune, the ruler of the sea, and so on. I also talked about how I had synchronicity with the song Smells Like Teen Spirit that equals 356. And just right after that, there was somebody at work whose total came to 356 or something like that. But the 268 is important because Kurt Donald Cobain equals 268 as well, right? And I then also noticed that I had blogged about the matrix, how the matrix in the Fibonacci cipher equals 356. And, the matrix is really important to the things I've talked about, I don't know if we necessarily live in a simulation, but sometimes it really seems that way, you know what I mean? And who knows? Maybe, you're going to really think about it, like maybe for whatever the reason, the simulation does involve a cabal that uses numbers and, tries to rule the world with it and so on, right? You got to really think deeper about it. But, just because there is a cabal doing all that doesn't necessarily disprove that it could be a simulation. But I don't really think that we do live in the Matrix or, I don't know. I don't know what I believe with it, to tell you the truth. I see a lot of these things. I don't know if these things involve magic or, I need to learn a lot more about. So does everybody in the truth and the Gematria truth community and the truth community in general. There's so many people who get to a certain point and just think they know everything, and they don't really advance themselves, and it's like, I don't want to be stuck in that same narrative every day, just like, blaming the cabal when you don't even fully understand what's going on with everything in the world. And when you really look at it, take a different perspective of Gematria, you start to see that you know, what people believe is the cabal isn't necessarily always the cabal. And these things happen everywhere, every day, all the time. And I've been talking about this for years. You know, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody or anything else, but I'm just saying we need to understand more of like the world we're living in before we can really change anything. You know, it's not going to do any good to go kill all the Jesuits and Freemasons and whatever else. It seems that they already have this. If they are really the ones ruling the world, then they got this stranglehold over the whole world, and they already know what's to come, and you know they already understand it all. They're prepared for anything that we have in mind to do to them, and whatever we do, it's already mapped out, and we are either manipulated or it's just already supposed to happen. I mean, there's just a lot more people need to think about, but. Once again, even in the Matrix movies, you find out that the architect actually allows people to be awake on purpose because it helps the Matrix, right? And they created Zion outside of the Matrix on purpose, and then they just destroy it every 70 to like 100 years, right? So they still control the people who think they are awake, but they allow people to believe they're awake, right? Or to be awake, but they still control them. If that makes sense. You got to really pay attention to that Matrix movie. But the point I'm trying to make is that the new Matrix, it came out on the 356th day of the year. And the original Matrix, it opens up, if you watch the very beginning of the movie, it has the date 2/19/1998. Right? 2/19. And I pointed out SpongeBob. And my daughter also pointed out an all-seeing eye in SpongeBob once that I made a video on, and her name equals 356, so. But in relation to SpongeBob and Neptune, right, and Pluto, but mostly to Neptune, think about the horse symbolism yet again. And my coworker Caitlin, she loves horses, dude. So it's like, I know there's something important to this horse theme and how it connects to Neptune. She loves horses. Snoop Dogg said horse. The India guy, it's linked up to horses. Earlier this year, we had Demarius Antoine Thomas die, who equals 356, the Denver Bronco player. It was linked up to the Mandela effect and horses, right? Didn't he die on 12/9? And the word horse equals 129. Just trying to think here, the Travis Scott Crowd Crush that was on 11/5 was synced to SpongeBob, right? And Super Bowl 53. And Richard Mandela, the guy who owned Omaha Beach, he was also born on 11/5, and I talked all about this in that video that I said to watch with the Mandela effect and so on. But my Aunt Cammie, she's the one who her brother got shot. Think about Kamala and Kamala Harris. Her birthday is also November 5th. That's that big Jesuit day. It's also a big day important to time travel. It's also, you could write it as 511, and Saturn equals 511, and Saturn is the keeper of time, so interesting thing there. I also had blogged about The Rock, and remember how The Rock opened up the Super Bowl this year? But he was in this movie called Red Notice that I watched with Ryan Reynolds and so on earlier, back in December, I think it was. And I noticed in that movie when I was looking it up, it also has a cameo appearance by this guy named Daniel Bernhardt. And Daniel Bernhardt is also one of the agents in The Matrix, Agent Johnson. And think about The Rock and Johnson and so on, but his name's 268. And the reason it sticks out to me so much is that he's also 56 years old. But for years, people have mispronounced my name as Daniel Bernhardt. And I don't know how they get Bernhardt out of Barrett, but for years, telemarketers would call and they'd ask for Daniel Bernhardt. And I was like, who is Daniel Bernhardt? I don't even get, hey, I mean, I guess I get it. I messed up some names like crazy, But I swear when I was 15 years old, a stupid thing, but when I was 15 years old, I worked at a telemarketing place, and there was a guy, his name was something like, whatever, how you do the like Dat Win or whatever, Dak Win. I was just like, oh my god, I have to pronounce this guy's name. Like, hi, is Mr. Fuck Nagin there? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm like 15 years old. Like, this shit was crazy, but apparently his last name's pronounced Win, you know, so who knows? But moral of the story is that this, Daniel Bernhardt, I don't know. There's something to it. And then he's in the Matrix, and I am synced up to the Matrix, and my friend Fonzo, and a whole bunch of stuff I've talked about. It's just too much to go on, but he's 56, and his birthday is the same day that Princess Diana died, so I don't know. There's something, I feel like there's something with this guy that I was supposed to see, you know, it's like The Rock, and Pluto uses the Bident, Neptune uses the Trident, Joe Biden. Think about the Bident, looks like Biden. Pluto is somewhat the equivalent of Hades, reminds us of death in the underworld, right? Neptune, water, earthquake, and horses, so I don't know. I gotta listen to the rest of the Gematria effect. I'm gonna try to finish it. Maybe there's some other colors, but you know, I'm supposed to see something with the horses and this Mandela effect and how it links up to Neptune. I know that is what I'm supposed to see with it, but I don't understand the full connection because I don't know enough about why Neptune would be important, I guess. I think Neptune, I think Bobby or somebody showed me that Neptune had to do with like psychic dreams and stuff, and I talked a lot about that back in September. I had a bunch of dream synchronicity and can't remember it all, but it had to do with psychics and how when I was like in high school, I had a dream about a lady's husband who died, and then he died the very next day, and turns out she's a psychic, and it's like, oh, so. Talked about that in a different video, but I'll try to find that video and leave it in the description. But I could even be wrong. Maybe that wasn't even Neptune. I thought that was something to do with Neptune, had to do with like psychic abilities, and so we will see. But I'll just leave it there. Like I said, I want to make a follow-up video. I thought it was gonna be a lot shorter than this, but all my videos are like this because I just start talking and there's so much to talk about. Like I said, I've been doing this so long now that I don't know how to like simplify the summary of the things I am talking about to make the point across. It's like the only way that you're going to understand what I am saying is you have to go back and watch a bunch of my old videos to really, you got to watch the links in the description to really understand what I am saying. Because if you don't, then I'm going to spend 4 hours explaining one little theme that I've made like, 20, a million hours of videos on, like Tisha Bob. That was very important in 2019. You could probably go back and watch about every one of my videos from November of 2018 all the way up to, whatever. 2020, I was still even talking about it. I'm still talking about it. It's like, how can I re-explain all of that in a very simplified way to get people to understand and still make the video short? I just can't do it. That's another reason why these videos get more and more frustrating every day. And I'm trying to show this bigger picture with Gematria, I could easily make videos every single day just blaming everything on a cabal and saying every number means this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And there's a lot more to it. And I'm just trying to show people. We got people like Zach showing very simple things, waking people up and so on. We don't need everybody doing that and it doesn't matter anyway. I make tons of videos, short videos, whatever. I tell people all the time about this very simple knowledge, and most people just don't care. And even if they do, they don't it doesn't spark their brain to look into it any deeper, I don't talk about a lot of this more in-depth things to people who don't understand what I'm saying, really. I try to very, very simplify it with them, but when it comes to these videos, I want it to be deeper, and, there's a deeper relationship, and, maybe someday it's going to click in someone's brain and they're going to really teach me something that I had never understood before. And it's going to open up a whole new ball game and, expand this knowledge and really, really break it out. You know what I mean? Or maybe, just, I don't want to make these short, simplified videos, especially like blaming everything on a cabal when, there's a lot more going on with it. So even though I agree, there is a cabal, it's not that I disagree, but that's why I make the videos the way that I do. And I try to organize them, but hey, I'm sorry. If I can't organize them right, I apologize, but you don't have to listen to it. So we'll see what happens when I go to Sioux Falls tomorrow. Some interesting things. I really do want to try to drive by that high school and see if there's any, like, even billboards or a sign or just anything going on, but I'm sure regardless if I do or don't, something will happen that it will be important. So have a good one. Peace.